Know the role of the coach, right? Really get intimately connected to your role. A lot of coaches, I'll use my air quotes, have popped up in the industry over the last 10 years. Right? Get a coach, executive coach, life coach, buzzword has a negative connotation to it in a lot of environments, in a lot of industries, and a lot of organizations. Because someone who said, I'm a coach, I'll coach you, whether, right, didn't provide that impact, didn't provide that value, didn't walked in and was a consultant, not a coach. And sometimes a client needs both. You've got to know when to wear which hat, right? And so I would say that's the first thing is get really intimately connected to and really honest with the role of the coach.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is someone who lives and breathes people-first leadership and has spent his career driving positive change inside organizations of all sizes. Patrick Lott is a certified senior HR professional, executive coach, and advisor with over 2 decades of experience in organizational transformation, team building, and operations. He's currently serving as Chief People Officer on a fractional basis, an advisor at Pacific Community Venture, and an executive coach with SMP Strategies. Patrick has helped countless leaders turn cutting-edge ideas into practical solutions that move the needle for their team. Whether he's guiding a company through change or coaching executives to lead with clarity and purpose, Patrick brings depth, warmth, and strategy to everything he does. I'm excited to dive into his journey, his insights on leading through uncertainty, and what he has learned about creating environments where both people and performances thrive. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming, Patrick. So tell me a little bit more about what inspired you to become an executive coach and start your own coaching business.
Well, great question. Early on in my adult life, anything like 18, 19 years old, I was actually going into the fire department. That's what I was going to do. I was going to go work at the fire department, become a paramedic and live the life on a fire truck. But even when I was in the fire academy, I always kind of had this desire, this drive to be an instructor. It wasn't just about I loved the job. I was passionate about the job. You're talking the 90s then, but there was just something that I just always wanted to be a guy that others could lean on to gain information and gain knowledge. And I wanted to help people just become great at whatever it was. And so that partnered with volunteering and doing some stuff. I became a youth leader in our local church. And after a little bit of time was asked to kind of take on the role of mentoring new leaders that came in. And that kind of put me on the journey of John C. Maxwell, or, the pastor, the youth pastor at the time, got me my first Maxwell leadership book, and it was Developing the Leader Within You. Right behind that was Developing the Leaders Around You. And I just kind of jumped in and went all in because it really resonated with me and what I wanted to do for people. I genuinely believe that if you can help individuals become the best versions of themselves, well, those people help organizations become the best version of themselves. And in turn, you create communities that are the best version of themselves. And so that was really it. It was this kind of internal drive. I always knew I wanted to help people grow. I knew I wanted to invest in people, help them to, again, become the best version of themselves, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of started the journey now almost 30 years ago.
30 years ago. I was just looking at your LinkedIn while he was also explaining that. So when it comes to the actual business, it has been 8 years and a half. So it has been less than 30, or you've been doing coaching, but you're doing it before you started your coaching business?
Yeah. So my focus in my coaching business, right, I always had a full-time role, and my focus in the coaching business first early on was gaining experience. So working with people who were trying to, get some coaching and support, but couldn't go out and afford to hire one, didn't know where to look. And so early on, it was just, hey, let me gain some experience there. I was also in a role with an organization where I was responsible for leadership, talent management, training, quality assurance, those sorts of things. And so coaching for our executive team fell under my purview. And so I was getting some of the real life experience there. I was interviewing and recruiting and engaging with coaches for our CEO and whatnot. So that helped. And I did that for several years until I got into a place where my coaching business replaced my income. So I was
Nice.
kind of doing this dual role, right? And so did that for, I don't know, 16 years. And then finally, the organization got to the place where I couldn't do both anymore. It was just too demanding. There was too much going on. I wasn't serving my role in corporate America with everything that I had, and I wasn't serving my role in S&P Strategies as the founder and coach for so many clients. I wasn't serving both with excellence. And so it was the time to make that transition to full time.
Just for me and some other coaches to understand, because there's many coaches who are thinking of doing the same thing, meaning while they also have the full-time job, they want to be able to start their coaching business on the side. For you, it took 15 years of doing it together. Do you think that was a choice of yours, or do you think that if you wanted to, you could have also gone into the coaching business maybe in as little as 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I probably could have made a transition much earlier. There were some, I'll say some extenuating circumstances that when that decision finally got made, like had to make it. There was some stuff. My wife was diagnosed with kidney failure, had to have a transplant, all this kind of stuff. I wasn't going to sacrifice time with her and our kids because I was working and I was trying to run this business. I enjoyed the comfort of having that consistent, steady income. I didn't want to go out and take out loans or anything like that. I wanted the business to fund itself. And in doing that, I had to care for me. So, and, it's also important. I'm a John C. Maxwell team member, right? Certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John C. Maxwell team. I'm also a CDR, C-suite executive coach, obviously getting the SHRM senior professional HR certification, like all those sorts of things. Those things take years to do, right? And so it's gaining that experience and that exposure in the corporate world and in corporate America that allowed me to take those experiences and education and learning to then apply in my coaching business and in my coaching world, right? It was I'll say a more stable way to learn and experiment.
I see. So not just like having that consistent stream of income, but also like there's a lot of learning that actually you got from the job that you were able to apply into the coaching business. And that makes a lot of sense. And right now, 8 years and a half into your coaching business, which part of your coaching journey do you find that has been the most rewarding for you since you started your coaching business?
It may be twofold, but it's kind of one and the same. One is seeing the change that someone experiences as a result of working with me, right? Whether it's an organization, whether it's a person, identifying that opportunity, helping them see it, understand it, navigate through it, and make it real. So I call it aha moment in their minds, right? When you get the chance to see that, you get the chance to live that with them, it's easily the single most impactful piece. That leads to, like where I spend a lot of effort and energy in lead gen is referrals. I get so many of my clients, and I tell people all the time, the greatest compliment you can ever give me is a referral. Because that means I did something so well that you're willing to tell others and use your name and your credibility on my behalf. And so that's probably the two things, is seeing this machine begin to run on the referral opportunities, knowing that in service of the client, they've got a really positive experience and they believe I have the opportunity, the skills, and the ability to help others.
And we'll definitely also dive a little bit into the marketing side of it. But before that, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to the audience that you're typically working with, apart from them being executives, is there a sub-niche of executives or certain industry or certain demographic that you typically find yourself working with?
I would say, mid-sized organizations, some might call it large size. When you think about maybe fewer than 500 employees, less than 150 or so million in revenue, that's typically the kind of space that I'm in. Industry agnostic. I've done everything from nonprofits to corporate to religious organizations to government and utilities. And so I've worked in so many different industries. And I think that's what makes coaching so fun, is that you can really walk in, gain some knowledge and experience around the world that your client is living in. And you don't have to know the very ingrained details of their industry. You got to be up to speed. You got to know what's going on because it's the only way you can address what they're trying to do. But in my experience, I have worked with every industry you can possibly imagine. Some I've really enjoyed and some I've been like, I don't want to ever do that again. But, What I look for more when I think about a client is where are they trying to go and what mindset do they have today? That's really the big thing that I look at. I work on strategic planning and 3-year mapping with the 3HAG process from Metronomics, in execution with EOS, and putting things like that in place with an organization. If their mindset is around, we have a target, we have a goal we want to get to, that mindset is what I really enjoy working with.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Someone, and I've worked with organizations who have just called, hey, trying to get some coaching, not sure what we're going to do, and you have 3 or 4 calls with them and you've gone nowhere, and you kind of got to make that decision, like, we're not a good match. I don't think what you're looking for is what I provide, or I can provide what you're really looking for. And there are sometimes those difficult conversations that you just got to have.
I like that. I really like that you just mentioned that when it comes to also saying no. You can say no even from the start, but sometimes you understand it along the way too, that if someone is a good fit or not. What is like the main disadvantage of continuing with a coaching client that you feel like is not a very good fit?
Well, when you think about brand, right, that's the biggest hindrance. If they're not getting that X value experience in working with you, right, the results aren't there. It doesn't matter if it's their fault because they're showing up unprepared or they're not doing the work between calls. At the end of the day, you're the coach. And so it's on you. And so there's that brand protection piece of it there. From a personal perspective, it's exhausting. Mm-hmm. It is draining to know that I got to get on a call with this person who they haven't done anything in the last 3 calls. And I'll ask, all right, didn't get a chance. My rule is you need to send me the agenda for our conversation 24 hours in advance of the call. Mm-hmm. And then I'll get on the call and say, hey, I didn't get your pre-call worksheet. What are we really focused on? What are we going to tackle? And you get 2, 3, 4 calls in and you're not getting that pre-call worksheet. That kind of handcuffs me as the coach. And so continuing to drag that on, after a certain period of time, they're going to go, well, I didn't get any value out of that. All he did was take my money. And that's not who I want to be. That's not the person that I am. It's not the individual that I want to be known as. And so for my own integrity and my own brand protection, I would much rather just say, hey, I'm happy to partner you with some coaches or some individuals I think are a better fit for you and can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, because I'm just not it.
And do you also find this happening with clients that are good fit, but are just seeking validation from you?
Yeah, that happens often. They're a good fit from an organizational perspective and where they're trying to go. And even their mindset, they got the real kind of, I want to go get it mindset. But at the end of the day, they get on the call and they just want me to tell them how good they're doing. Right? They just want me to give them the attaboy and say, oh, no, that sounds like so-and-so's the problem over there. And that's not coaching. Right? That's not how that works. And so in those places, my first desire is to have built a relationship in such a way that I can have that conversation with them, that I can say, hey, you got to understand the role of the coach is ABC. What you're asking me to do is D, E, and F, and I'm just not going to do D, E, and F. And so are we aligned? What do we need to do to kind of reset where we are? And so those conversations as well can be a little bit painful, and your clients never like them. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to have those conversations, in my own honest opinion, you shouldn't be coaching.
I agree. And that is such a powerful statement right there. So I want to move a little bit away from when it comes to like the types of clients and how to have these hard conversations. I wanted to ask you, we'll move a little bit into marketing. You mentioned in the beginning that there's referrals that come to you. That obviously is a sign of a good coach, meaning they have such a good experience that, just like you mentioned, they are willing to have someone else come into you through their name. Is there any other way that you found has worked well for you in terms of you finding clients, any other marketing channel?
Yeah, so I've done mastermind groups, right? I'll put together a 10-week or something mastermind group, and we'll typically get clients out of that. I've done quite a few speaking engagements, and those speaking engagements turn into client opportunity. LinkedIn is a pretty good resource for me. I do a lot of recruiting for organizations, and so I explicitly almost use only LinkedIn for that. And so have a lot of exposure and whatnot on the LinkedIn side of it. And so, the opportunity to connect and whatnot is there, similar to this, right? I'm getting somebody reaching out via InMail. That is probably one of the more steady day-to-day lead gen tools out there for me has been LinkedIn. And I'm not good at it. I'm not good at LinkedIn. I'll respond and I'll react and maybe post something once in a while. I am not the guy that's out there every day doing 5 posts a day. And so that's, that one probably could be better. But, what I would say is early on, I would go speak anywhere to anyone. I spoke at the Future Leaders of America conference in Orlando. It was a bunch of college kids, and it was free. And I spoke at another conference in Orlando, the NCPA, Community Pharmacists Association. Spoke there, and that was like any opportunity to get in front of people. One, because I love public speaking, but two, to get in front of people and share what I was passionate about and create connection with those people in the audience. That has kind of over time really created this opportunity to get into doing more coaching. When I was going through the John C. Maxwell training, that's what they said. Look, the speaking on stage is the fun and fancy. Coaching is your bread and butter. And so getting in and doing the coaching, you do the speaking because it's fun and you can engage, you can have a lot of interaction with a large audience in that space, but you do that to create opportunities to coach. I mean, that was what I did. I spoke in Canada. I spoke to a group in Australia. I spoke in Las Vegas. I didn't care where it was. I'll go speak.
So there's a lot of speaking. And you also mentioned group mastermind. So these are kind of like workshops, you would say, that you do on Zoom, kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. So the early on, we didn't have Zoom as much, right? Once upon a time, it was you would have some local, like you're part of the Chamber of Commerce, or if you had a local Toastmasters group, or something, and you would begin to connect with people. You would find out places where they had pain, and where you had 5, 8, 10 people that had common pain or common heartburn. Say, hey, I would love to host a mastermind group with you guys over the next 10 to 12 weeks. We're going to focus on these 3 things. And that would turn into a weekly meeting, 2 hours ish, maybe over the next 10 to 12 weeks. And then one mastermind group fed into another mastermind group, fed into another mastermind group. And out of those, 5 or 10, I tried to do at least 6, no more than 10, no less than 6 in a group. Every now and then we would have 5, but you would typically get 1 to 3 coaching clients out of it. And those 1 to 3 coaching clients would turn into a 12-month, 24-month. I've got clients I've been coaching for 7 years because I work with their whole organization now, not just that one direct client.
Wow. So some clients have stayed with you throughout, like once you actually had your business started on the side. Cool. That's amazing. And so there's referrals. I think that there is the majority, and there's also these mastermind groups. How do you find people to go into the masterminds group? So you have an email list, you let them know, oh, we're doing this. How do they join?
Yeah, so some of it is still grassroots, right? The local Chamber of Commerce, the local Rotary Club, working with organizations that I work with that are national organizations, right? Just having those conversations and learning the pain. And when you find that common pain, putting them in a group together. And then, occasionally what I'll do is I'll put something out on social media. I'll do it on my LinkedIn page. I'll do it on my S&P Strategies business LinkedIn page. I'll put it out there and say, hey, look, for a season, we're going to focus on this. Come join us. Right? No hard, pushy, whatever. And so that one is more of a virtual versus being the live in person. And then I do what I call a CEO circle. And I've got CEOs who are current clients, right? So I've been coaching them or supporting their organizations, and I bring them together. It's a 12-month program. And once a month, we're all together in person in the same room all day. And we're going through their business. We're talking about their business performance financially and operationally. We're talking about the heartburn and the headaches that they're having, the places where they're struggling. We're talking through their people and their people operations and performance of people. So we go, literally every single one of them takes a turn reporting out on their business, and everybody around the table gets a chance to provide them some feedback and some insights. Pardon me. And so that one has been one that's been longstanding. It just keeps going, and we get new CEOs, right? You had these 8 guys, because that one I cap out at 8, but you get these 8 guys, and then in the next 12 months, you get 8 more. And then the next 12 months, you get 8 more. And that one has been really positive because it has turned into more coaching, direct coaching, because I'll work with the CEO in that mastermind for 3 or 4 months. And they're like, hey, do you have bandwidth to work with my executive team? I was like, well, let's talk about what you need and what you're looking for. And, we jump into that. And so that's been a positive one as well.
That's all great. So this thing is also kind of like a retreat that you do with these executives too. Interesting, because we also do that. We did that with our coaches in our community. We did that in Tulum in Mexico. We were there for a few days, most of the coaches in our community. So we did something similar, and it's been very powerful to be able to have that interaction in person, especially these days where most of
Mhm.
it is virtual.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving a little bit away from marketing and wanted to ask you in the future, do you have, or right now, do you have any goals that you're working towards for the next 1 to 3 years with your coaching business?
Yeah. So in my S&P strategies business, my goal is to, over the next 3 years, to scale to double the number of coaches I can bring on. That's the real priority, right? I want to be a business that allows new coaches or people transitioning from corporate careers or whatever else into coaching. I want to be a business that those people can come and kind of cut their teeth and learn and right, but still do it their way. I don't want to be so prescriptive. Here's how you have to do it. Want to protect the brand, of course, but I want to be able to, to come in and be someone or be an organization that can mentor coaches and give them a space to learn, to master their craft and to find their niche where they really want to camp out and where they really want to be, right? I'm a huge human performance person. I love human strategy and people strategy, people performance. I love that kind of stuff. I love the people dynamic in business. I'm also an operations guy. Other people, they just want to focus on, I want to work with finance leaders, or I just want to work with operations leaders, or I just want to do. And so giving, new people into the world of coaching some mentoring and some space to experiment and learn that is really a big goal for S&P strategies over the next probably 3 to 5 years. And then I've got actually a peer of mine who's actually a great friend and has been a mentor for me for the last 5 years. He and I are actually launching a new it's a new function, right? New business altogether. And we're really focused on helping founders and organizations plan and prepare for a profitable exit. So we want to build exit strategy into their business because you've been around the coaching world long enough. You start working with somebody and they don't have a plan, right? And so over the next 3 years, the plan is to really get that one up off the ground. It's going to be, again, probably a more specific market than what I do with S&P strategies. And it's very different because it's specifically focused around building an organization that is maximizing its opportunity at exit.
I see. That is so interesting being able to be part of that, especially. And so this is kind of like a new offer entirely. So when it comes to investments in your coaching business, has there been investments that you found that actually have had a good impact in your coaching business growing? And you also mentioned a mentor of yours, but apart from that, has there been anything else, like any coaching programs, masterminds, communities that you've been part of with the purpose of growing your coaching business?
Yeah, I will say that the single greatest investment impact, like investment ROI, has been on support, right? Administrative support, individuals who can come in and manage inbox and follow up tasks and those sorts of things. The simplest investment ever with the greatest ROI. Because when I think about my business's cost for me to do work in the business, it's significant, right? I mean, I don't mean that in arrogance. I could be working for a client or supporting a client that brings revenue in at X number of dollars per hour or per whatever versus focused on these other tasks. And so that has probably been one of the greatest things. And it was a humbling thing to do. I am really OCD with my calendar and my inbox and those sorts of things. And to bring somebody in and empower them and entrust them to manage that was very, very hard for me. It was just not something natural. And so that has probably been one of the single greatest impacts. And coaches, we talk about all the time. You got to be able to work on the business, not in the business. And then we're coaches working in the business. So I would say from a very practical standpoint, that has probably been the greatest investment in ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Second is getting into my own masterminds. Like I go and I'm a part of a group and I'm learning the experience. I'm learning, the facilitation and really those sorts of things. Living the experience as a learner or as a coachee has been the other thing that I would say has provided the greatest return.
Amazing. So how does the current structure of your coaching business look like in terms of like team?
So I have myself, I have three coaches that are on it, right? They're independents and they have their kind of areas of specialty that they focus on. I have two admins. One handles all of the, invoicing, AR, AP, all of that kind of stuff, manages the books. And then I have one that manages all the email, calendar, like all of those sorts of things. And so it's a small, right, relatively small organization, but the goal is, the focus is on impact. That's the big goal. And, when a independent coach gets the capacity, like, okay, hey, I don't want to take on anymore, or I'm at, my wit's end, then it's time, okay, well, let's talk about, reaching out and connecting a relationship with another coach who would be interested in coming in and doing some work.
I really like that. I really like that you have been able to structure the company in a way that you also have other coaches, just like you mentioned, being able to especially grow your coaching business, you have to have others support you with that. And another thing I wanted to ask you is when it comes to challenges, right now with your coaching business, also thinking about the goals that you just mentioned, what is the biggest challenge that you would say you're facing right now in further scaling your coaching business?
It's probably the universal answer of time. Right? I've got a finite number of hours in a day. I've got a finite number of hours in a week, a month, a year. So scaling the business without it being dependent on my availability and time. Mm-hmm. That is really the most significant piece of it. And you can always do things to make more revenue and generate more profit. Sure, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you're making an impact. Right. And so I really have this drive and this purpose around the impact that people experience. And my availability is only so much.
Yeah.
And so that's the big, like, Rubik's Cube of solution, trying to make sure that piece is always just right.
Yeah. Unless you fully or put like maybe 10% of your time in coaching and the rest of it is working on your business, that would be like one way to like optimize that. But cool. So is there any final advice you'd like to give to other executive coaches who are looking to scale their impact, in this case, not just like their business?
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to scale impact, well, I would say three things. Know the role of the coach, right? Really get intimately connected to your role. A lot of coaches, I'll use my air quotes, have popped up in the industry over the last 10 years. Right? Get a coach, executive coach, life coach, buzzword has a negative connotation to it in a lot of environments, in a lot of industries, in a lot of organizations, because someone who said, I'm a coach, I'll coach you, whether, right, didn't provide that impact, didn't provide that value, didn't walked in and was a consultant, not a coach. And sometimes a client needs both. You've got to know when to wear which hat, right? And so I would say that's the first thing is get really intimately connected to and really honest with the role of the coach. Second, I would operate with incredible integrity. Absolute integrity. If you don't know, it's okay, I don't know, right? Keeping that in mind. And then the third is always focus on value. When you go through John C. Maxwell training, he has a 10x rule. If it costs you $1, I want to give you $10 in value, right? And so when you think about what a client might be paying you, are you giving them that 10x value? And that one kind of goes back to the integrity and understanding the role of the coach, right? And if you can focus on value, the dollars will come, the revenue will come. But if you're trying to focus on revenue, you're going to chase your tail for a very long time. Focus on the value, focus on the difference that someone's life will be because of their engagement with you. And if that can be your motivation, if that can be your drive, then, I think it was Maxwell that said it. People buy into who you are before they pay for what you do. And so that value piece of it, making sure that you're providing value as your first objective. If we get off a call and I haven't provided the real value and the proper value for what you were trying to accomplish, then I failed you as the coach and I've got to do something different. And we've got to own that piece of it.
Really great advice. Thank you so much, Patrick. For anyone who wants to find you or connect with you, they can go into your LinkedIn, Patrick Lott. They can also, I think, is there a website they could potentially go to as well? Or is just the LinkedIn mainly?
Yeah, the LinkedIn mainly, because I'm not good at the social media and that kind of stuff, actually in conversations with someone to do all that stuff for me. I actually shut the website down just because I couldn't keep it refreshed. I couldn't keep it maintained. So that was a bit of heartburn, but it will be coming. And when it's out there, it'll be on the LinkedIn page.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick. We will also link your LinkedIn into the description as well for anyone who wants to find it there. So it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
Great. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.